So today's opener is over slope. So today's opener is over slope. The first part of your opener, the front side of your opener, is basically where you find the slope of each of the lines. So you're given the slope of line A. So on your opener, you need to find where line A is. Line A goes from the top left to the middle of the graph. So if you have line A, if you're looking at line A, it's going at a downward angle. What kind of slope is that? Is it going to be negative, positive, zero, or undefined? It's going to be a negative slope. Good. So if I want you to determine how steep or which direction that line's going, you need to find the lattice points. What are lattice points? What are lattice points? What are lattice points? It says it on your front sheet of your note sheet on slope notes. Yeah, it's where our line goes through, where the horizontal and vertical grid lines intersect each other. So if I'm looking at line A here, I'm going to look through and see exactly where that line crosses through the corner of where the grid lines intersect one another. So my first lattice point I'm going to find is going to be right here. And then I'm going to choose the next lattice point that's closest. That way I don't have to worry about reducing. I'm lazy. I don't like to reduce. Okay? Now, to find slope, remember my slope is rise over run. So I'm first going to have to find my rise. Now, rise is either up or down. So we started our first lattice point at the left here. And am I going to count up or am I going to count down to my next lattice point? Down. So I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3. Because I'm counting down, it's going to be a negative. So it's a -3 is my rise. And now I need to find my run. How many spots over do I count to get my run? 1. So my slope of line A is -3 over 1. We're going to leave that 1 on there. Usually I tell you guys, oh, don't put the 1 on there. We don't need to worry about it because we want it in simplest form. For the sake of slope, because you want rise over run, you're going to keep that 1 there to show what your run is. All right? Now we're going to go to line B. So line B starts and it moves in an upward direction. So line B, what kind of slope would it have? Positive slope. So for line B, we're going to find our lattice points. And remember, they can have lots of lattice points. So I'm going to find all my lattice points. You can find the 2 closest or you can find every single one. It's up to you how you want to do it. The first thing I need to determine then, I find my lattice point, the first lattice point, I'm going left to right. And I'm going to find my rise. I'm going to count either up or down to get to my next lattice point. So it's basically like a map. You have to follow the little grid lines. You have to stay on the grid lines to follow it. So for this one, am I going to count up to my next lattice point or am I going to count down? Up. How many spots?
2.
Because I'm counting up, it's going to be a positive or a negative? Positive. Good. And then my run, I count over how many spots?
3.
So my slope is going to be 2 over 3. Now I go to line C.
0.
Line C is right here. What kind of slope does line C have? It's a 0 slope. If I go on that slope or that mountain that's built like that, and I get in the middle of it, I'm not going to go anywhere, am I? So it's a 0 slope. So how you would write that, because basically line C has a lattice point every single grid line, right? So how you would write that, what's the rise? Do we count up at all? No. What's the run? 1, which basically just equals 0. So you could write it either way, 0 over 1 or just equals 0. Either way is okay. The next one, line D. Positive, negative, 0, or undefined? Positive. Good. So we start by finding our lattice points. So you can find just the two closest together, or you can find all of them and then determine what your slope is. So I just went ahead and found all my lattice points. If I use my first lattice point and my last lattice point for my answer, what am I going to have to do to get the final answer? If I use my first lattice point and my last lattice point to find my slope, what am I going to have to do to my answer at the end?
Wait.
If I use this lattice point and this last lattice point, yeah, I'm going to have to reduce. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to use my first two here. So first thing I find is my what? For slope, what's the first thing that you find?
1.
What is that though? What does that 1 represent? The rise. I count up, so it's going to be a positive or negative. Okay, and then my run, I count over, it's going to be a positive 2. Final answer. Okay, so that'll be your first part of your quiz tomorrow. Flip it over. Don't act surprised. I already went through it all and told you what we're doing. Flip it over. The back side. So the back side of your opener is going to be what you took notes over yesterday. So the back side of your opener is what you took notes over yesterday. It says find the slope. Find the slope of each of the lines passing through each of the pair of points. So this time, you're not given a graph and you're not given a line, so you can't count just rise over run. I'm just giving you 2 ordered pairs, and you have to tell me what the slope of those 2 ordered pairs are going to be. That's where you use slope formula. So take your slope notes, flip it to the back. So the back side of your slope notes, you have the real slope formula. So the real slope formula that you're going to have to use is m, because what does m stand for? What does the variable m stand for? What does m stand for? What is rise over run? What's m mean? Slope, yeah, it's slope. So m equals, it's saying slope equals y2 minus y1. Don't write them as exponents, they're not exponents. Divided by x2 minus x1. So this is the formula here that you're going to use to find the slope of the ordered pairs. Whoa.
It's
the same thing you did yesterday, that's right.
Hey, you be trying to confuse
So
me.
now, from here, you have 2 ordered pairs. This is your first ordered pair, so I'm going to label it as x1, y1, because they're my first ordered pairs. So I'm going to come over here, label it x1, y1, first ordered pairs. So my second ordered pairs, I'm going to label what?
X2, Y2.
Yeah. That just helps me to determine where I put my numbers in for my formula. Then I'm going to drop down and I'm going to solve. Now, I will tell you this. Worksheets, quizzes, everything. When you go to do the slope formula, every single time, you need to put m equals. You need to tell me that you're using the slope formula. So m equals, and then my formula is y2 minus y1. So what's my y2 number? 1. And then my operation sign in my formula is minus. And what's my y2? Or sorry, excuse me, my y1?
4.
4. So 1 minus 4. Over. So the second part of my formula is x2 minus x1. Well, what's my x2 number?
7.
7. And then my operation sign is a minus. And what's my x1 number?
3.
3. So I wrote my slope. I wrote my m to say that I'm solving for slope. I wrote out the numbers that I needed to substitute in for my formula. And now I solve. This is where you guys are probably going to get a little more confused. Watch your positives and negatives. Use your calculator if you need to. So what's 1 minus 4? Say it again. Negative 3. Over 7 minus 3. 4. Good. Can you simplify this fraction or reduce it?
Nope.
No. So that's your final answer. So I'm going to box that.
Do we have to subtract from that the one time we put one minus three?
What's that?
Do we have to always subtract?
Yes, it's always subtract. The operation that you're going to do is always subtraction for the slope formula. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. So again, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to label my ordered pairs. X1, Y1, because they come first. X2, Y2, because it comes second. I'm going to use my real slope formula. So I'm going to write M equals, and then I refer to my formula up here. Y2 minus Y1. What do I plug in for my Y2? 5. Operation sign is minus. What do I plug in for Y1? -1. Because it's going to be a subtraction sign, touch, and a negative, I'm going to put my -1 in parentheses here. Over. And then the second part of my formula, X2, which is minus X1, -1 again. Again, I'm going to put it in parentheses. Now, if I have a subtraction sign and a negative sign, or basically two negatives touching, what do I change it into? Addition. So I'm going to do that for the top and the bottom, right? So now I solve. So my top is just 5 plus 1, which equals 6. And my bottom is -1 plus 1. 0. Now, in your calculators, using your calculators, take 6 divided by 0. It's going to say what?
0.
No, it's not. It's going to say an error or syntax error or whatnot. That's because if I have 6 calculators in my hand, can I divide it into 0 groups?
Oh, no.
No, it's automatically going to be one group. Because you can't do that, it's an error. So if I end up with an error, what kind of line do you think that's going to be? Undefined. So do not write 6 over 0 as your final answer. You're going to put an equal sign, and you're going to write out the word undefined. If you're lazy, like my 6th hour, you can put just undefined. But it's going to be undefined. And the last one here. So again, first thing I do every single time, I label my ordered pairs. Sometimes when I get overconfident and I don't, I end up messing up. So I label them every time. I'm going to come off to the right here and write out my formula just because I don't think I'll have enough room to solve. So I'm going to put my equal sign. I'm going to put M for slope, so showing that I'm solving for the slope formula.
You forgot to divide.
I just talked about that. So if I take 6 divided by 0,
No, I'm talking about like on the other ones. You supposed to divide by 2. That's what he did in the video yesterday.
you can't simplify. You can't do that. You can only do that if you can simplify or reduce.
So I did it wrong on my worksheet.
I'll look at it. I'll look at it. It's not a big deal. Let's look at this one. We might have to simplify in this one now. Okay, so my formula, y2 minus y1. So what's my y2? 1. Then I put in my subtraction sign. Then what's my y2? Or excuse me, my y1. Woo!
-3.
So I'm going to put it in parentheses. Over. Okay, what's my x2?
-2.
Minus my x1?
6.
6. Equals. Okay, 2 negatives touching.
It turns to a positive.
Okay. So what's 1 plus 3?
4.
Watch your negatives. What's -2 minus 6? -8. Now, we have 2 things that we need to fix here. The first thing, are you allowed to have a negative in the bottom?
No.
No. Easy fix. We just move it up to the top. You don't have to do anything fancy. You just put your equal sign and take that negative from the denominator and put it at the top. Now, Isaiah, this is where you're talking about dividing. So you have 4 over 8. 4/8 is a fraction that you can simplify or that you can reduce. You can do it in 3 different ways. The first way you can do it is just type 4 fraction button 8. equals, and the calculator will simplify it for you. Or you can look at 4/8 and think, what are 4 and 8 both divisible by? 2. And reduce it that way. Or you could think even further, 4 and 8 are both divisible by 2, but they're also divisible by a much larger number. 4. So you have one less step to do. So what's 4 divided by 4?
4 divided, you mean 4 divided by
What's 4 divided by 4?
1.
What's 8 divided by 4? So the slope of these two ordered pairs is negative 1/2. Again, if you don't want to do this step here, you don't have to show me that step, because you guys have the scientific calculators where you can just type it in. Okay? All right, go ahead and make sure your names are on the front of these openers. Make sure you have all your work shown and pass those down to Mr. McFarland.